we are back on Boond Soch ki Talk Train of Thought with a series of episodes with Mr. Gopal Mishra, who is an enterprise resource planning modernization with HPCL. It's a great, interesting insights what we are having from him on this Talk show. So welcome to this episodes again.
Thanks.
Now, in fact, for the benefit of an Talk audience who would like to make their career as a project manager, since you have got an experience of 17 years while being part of an HPCL and also part of an Tata Motors, so can you throw some light in terms of an key skills for a project manager? First, we'll start with the project planning.
So project planning is actually the heart of any project. Projects fail and succeed at the planning stage. A well-planned project, a precisely planned project is one that actually succeeds to deliver its objectives. And that is, I think, the most crucial aspect of any project. So that knowledge of project planning is essential. Even if you are in execution, the planning aspect is something that you must understand. And that starts from basically the breaking down of entire project into small chunks of activities, the work breakdown structure, what we call it. And then understanding each and every activity. So resources required for those activities, including time and let's say people and equipment, materials, all of these things. So every activity has to be planned in advance with all its requirements in black and white. And the more detailed the planning is, the more precise the execution will be. At the planning stage, the costs are low. But during the execution, the costs are high. Any changes that you make in planning, the costs are low. Any change that you make during execution or at later stage in project, the costs go up exponentially. So that is why planning is the most crucial stage.
I see. And then about the once we make a plan, like we talk in terms of an estimation and budgeting, like it's what you say about that?
So estimation and budgeting is actually a cousin of planning. So it is a part of planning process, and a planner has a more of a techno-commercial role, where you have to understand even the commercial aspects of it. Of course, every project has a budget, and because there is an ROI expected, there is a limit on how much you can spend for it. And with that budget constraint, you have to plan the entire project. And there you have to define each activity, how you're going to have the cost of that activity, including again the services, the materials, and how you can minimize the cost, but at the same time without affecting the project. So a project has multiple constraints. There is time, there is scope, there is cost, and all of these things have to be in balance. So on one aspect you cannot compromise the other one.
I see. And even as a project manager, the skill we talk in terms of preparation of a bid document, because this happened in a case of where the capital is involved. Like, so what do you say about that?
So any project, even if you do a personal project, you do planning, you do estimation and budgeting. But what you do not do is this step. So basically, this makes it formal. In any organization, in a personal project, you don't need any tendering. But when you make it formal at a large scale organization, you have to make it formal. It is required because then the parties are very clear on what their duties and responsibilities are for both of the parties, what their deliverables are, what I have to give and what they have to give. And in any business, it is always good to have clarity on what is the scope of each and every individual. So that is what is required in the bid document. Of course, bid document talks about other things as well in the scope, and bid document is basically the precursor to the tender, and tendering is for the contract. And all the business that we do, I think it is always through the contract at a large scale. Of course, at a small scale it can be without contracts, with a verbal contract. But this is important when you're talking about any large scale project.
Correct. And now, in fact, as a project manager, the knowledge of ASME and ASTM, can you throw light on that for target?
So any technical knowledge, whether it is ASTM, ASME, or whichever field that you're working on. So let's say you're talking about development of a new car, building of a new software, implementation of ERP. All of these projects require, the first is your basic technical skills. All of these technical skills are required because these things are the basic. A project management skill is adding on to the top of these skills. Without those basic technical skills, you'll not be able to do any projects. Whether you're a civil engineer building a bridge, you must know your basic civil engineering and the technicalities of building a bridge.
And for the benefit of target audience, what this ASME and ASTM stands for?
So there's basically American standard, different American standards are used in our industry, oil and gas specifically. So it's American Society for Mechanical Engineers and American Society for Testing of Materials. So these are the organizations that set these standards for materials, for different processes, for designing, for testing, all of that.
I see. And also is a part of an project manager, like we talk in terms of project scheduling and monitoring, like. So with your experience, can you enlighten your target audience on that?
Yeah, so there is a whole plethora of softwares for doing that. But before using those softwares, you need to understand the basics of it. For scheduling and monitoring, primarily is about breaking down the project into smaller activities and detailing how much time will be required for each activity. Then making a network of those activities, as many students might have learned in their, whether in BTech or in MBA, the networks, CPM, PERT. So basic is that only. Beyond that, what happens is you sometimes need to crash a project. That you have limited time available. Going by the network, it is going to take more time. How do you crash? How do you manage the slack? How much slack can you take? Because every slack that you take, every delay that you make, all of these things are going to be a cost.
Correct.
And when you are going to crash it, then also you have to incur a cost. So ultimately, scheduling and monitoring is also about cost in parallel.
Yes.
And during monitoring, you stick to what you scheduled, try to stick to what you scheduled. But when the things change, then you should be flexible enough to remodel your schedule for the future.
Now, just for the benefit of target audience, like while being a part of an or qualification or education, like we go through all those project scheduling and all on paper, like, and once being on the job, like, so then it's a complex situation, like.
Yes, of course.
So how, like, normally a person fits into that on the application related basis, like?
Yeah, of course. So when you are on the job, the things start becoming a little different from what we learned in the book. So of course the situation happens, and more often than not, we try different solutions. All of us have learned by trying different solutions, and it depends on which type of project you're working on. There are certain projects which take 1 or 2 years, like say building a bridge or making software or designing a car. All of these are long-term projects where the immediate activity can delay the project by a little, not much, and you can cover up in the next let's say 1.5 years. But then there are schedule sensitive projects like a turnaround, where any delay of 4 hours means that the whole project is getting delayed by 4 hours. Which means that there is going to be a cost, a huge cost. So schedule sensitive projects are monitored in a very different way from the projects which are like long term, and the perspectives for these two is very different, and that is where technology is actually quite helping. So the long term projects are monitored using the traditional softwares, but the new age software, the IoT devices, are actually required for schedule sensitive projects. This is actually quite helping the industry in monitoring the projects more precisely, because the data is coming in real time from the field
data which you get. So it is more convenient to use those kind of software. Now, as a project manager, like as a change management, what you have to say on that?
So any project is a change, especially if I talk about ERP software. It affects the life of every single individual in my company. So all of these things mean that the company people have to change. There are certain processes that we will be changing, so people have to adopt to that change. How do we manage that change? because the world is changing.
Correct.
And we have to be flexible enough to change.
Correct.
So any project that you bring or any business change that you bring, this is something I think the most important skill for future, because the way disruptions are coming in, the industries are going to change very rapidly.
Correct.
And the ability to change, ability to unlearn and then relearn and change is very important. So first aspect I think that we worked on was how do we approach the users about that change. So the buy-in from users always comes if there is something in it for him or her.
Correct.
So for with any change, first you go to give and then you ask them to give something to you.
Correct. So that's a great concept which is there, and I'm sure like the way you have described over these skills as a project manager which are concerned is going to help our target audience a lot, right from project planning to estimation and budgeting and preparation of a bid document, and also the knowledge of an ASME and ASTM once you're part of a larger projects. And project scheduling and monitoring becomes the crux of the entire project manager, and also in terms of change management, how flexible you need to be. Thanks a lot for enlightening our target audience on the basic skills of a project manager which is concerned. I'm sure many of them who are listening to you will get some insights in terms of how to go ahead as with the project management which is concerned. In fact, do catch up with Mr. Gopal Mishra on our next episode of ttalk Boond Soch. There's more insights what we're going to have in terms of an project manager or in terms of an operation as such. Till then, go to www.ttalk.net, subscribe and like the channel as much as you can. So thanks a lot for being part of it. Thank you very much.